Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. None of you can become my disciple if you do not give up all your possessions. I believe the theological term that we learned in seminary for such biblical passages as this is ouch. Today's reading from Luke is what scholars call one of the hard sayings of Jesus, and hard it certainly is. If these words make you squirm, you are not alone. Even we clergy, martyrs to our vocation that we are, prefer to soft pedal past this text. All across America this weekend, you can tune into sermons in Episcopal churches that go something like this. Oh, you know, of course you should keep your possessions and love your family members and your life. Of course you should take your vacations to France and buy your nice Teslas and own your nice homes and everything in them. All Jesus is really trying to say here in so many words is, just be a good person. Except that honestly, that is not what he's saying here at all. In fact, he could not be clearer in today's reading about the cost of discipleship. Emily Towns, Dean of Vanderbilt Divinity School, notes that the term cost appears only once in the entire New Testament, right here. For which of you intending to build a tower does not first sit down and estimate the cost to see whether he has enough to complete it? Professor Towns defines cost as what we give up to acquire, accomplish, maintain, or produce something. It involves a measure of sacrifice. So what Jesus is really saying is, if you're going to be my disciple, you might want to sit down first and think about what you're getting yourself into before you decide to take up that cross and follow me. Because I'm all or nothing. There is no halfway built tower of faith with me. Jesus was not known for his soft pedaling. A few things about the language Jesus uses might help to lessen the sting of his words for us. Biblical speech sometimes uses hyperbole or extreme language to drive a point home. None of Jesus' listeners, for example, would take literally such phrases as, if your eye causes you to sin, gouge it out and throw it away. But the hyperbolic phrase makes the point, and the image stays with you. Here, too, Jesus uses sharper language to convey the seriousness of his message. Rather than taking your hand and looking into your eyes and gently saying, oh, friend, you gotta lose your love of things. Your desire for the joys of this life, you've got to drop away before you can follow me. No, instead of that, Jesus says, hate your mother and father and leave everything if you would be my disciple. You got to admit, it has a little more punch to it. But still, it is hard to hear. I should also mention that Jesus is speaking within a Semitic idiom, a way of saying things, where love and hate are not emotionally laden words necessarily, like they are for us. But instead, they have to do with choices and priorities. So hate can simply mean to love less. Jesus would never advise actual hatred against anyone, but he insists that we must love our life less than we love God in order to be his disciples. It's not that we should hate our families. Rather, we are called to prioritize Christ above all family ties, possessions, and other obligations if we are to take on the mantle of discipleship. And yeah, that might mean loosening our bonds of kinship and love in this world, which feels kind of counterintuitive. But again, Jesus wants us to see that our true calling lies even deeper than those bonds of communal or familial relations. Arlene Thompson is the head of Altar Guild at St. Luke's, Long Beach. where, as you know, I served as an associate and then interim rector for almost 4 years before I came here. Arlene was raised Jehovah's Witness. And I forget how or when it happened, but she fell in love with the liturgy and theology of the Episcopal Church. Our mix of tradition and expansive acceptance truly spoke to her spirit. Knowing God was calling her in that direction, she left her family's faith and found a more authentic relationship with Christ at St. Luke's Long Beach, but only after much struggling, because she knew there would be consequences. Sure enough, her parents disowned her, as did a few of her siblings. They never spoke to her again, except occasionally through a third party. Her father died in 2016. Her mother died in 2021. Arlene was ordered by the family to not attend either service. Which begs the question, who was truly doing the will of Jesus? Was it Arlene's parents, who might have taken today's gospel passage literally? Whoever comes to me and does not hate their children cannot be my disciple. From their perspective as Jehovah's Witnesses, Arlene was an apostate, and the way they followed Christ was to cut her out of their lives. That was their cross to bear, in order to have a shot at being one of the 144,000 their faith tells them will be saved. Or was Arlene doing the will of Jesus? Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple. I'm sure she knew there would be lasting damage to these relationships if she followed the call of Christ in her soul. But follow it she did, and her life was never the same again. Now, she is a joyful person. You would see it immediately if you ever met her. But she bears a cross for the choice she made. To my mind, Arlene's parents took too literally the command of Jesus to hate your family for my sake. Arlene never stopped loving her family, but at some level she had to make the choice to love them less than she loved God in order to follow what her soul told her was her calling. And loving God above all else is that hard choice in this hard saying we hear from Jesus today. Though Arlene could not attend her mother's funeral, she did make these remembrance cards and sent them out to her friends. I received mine in the mail, along with a letter that she wrote me. Just to tie up this story and maybe offer a little glimpse of redemption, I'd like to read one bit of the letter that she wrote me now, along with part of my response. She writes, "When my mother died last month, I asked the St. Luke's Long Beach prayer team to pray for my mother's soul, that she went to her grave, as did my father 5 years before, still believing she had to shun me for joining a different church, and to pray for me, that I could carry on without bitterness. Several suggested that my mother is now free to shine her love down from above when she couldn't do that within the bounds of earth. I like that thought. Also, my cousin suggested that the shunning could not have been easy for my mother. After all, I was the baby, and surely she struggled turning her back on her baby, as well as on her 2 sons. I wrote back, "What a shame that religion can rend relationships when Jesus was always and only about love and connection. It must have been hard for your mother and father to disown you, but it was their choice, not yours. And my sympathy and compassion is with you. I'm not sure it's enough to say, oh, it made you a stronger person, like they say suffering can do. It was needless. But still you are a stronger person and a more faithful one because you have chosen the form of worship and praise that best feeds your spirit, and that's important. I guess if I think about heaven, what it might be like, I imagine a state of being where all is well, every bitter and sweet thing is resolved into God's being, and there is only an eternal love in which all souls shall dwell. Not sure why I think that, but I've had a little vision or two here and there in which that was the message that I heard. All shall be well, as Julian of Norwich wrote. But if there is anything of ego left after we die, I cannot imagine your parents not looking down from heaven and being proud of their baby daughter. We are called to transformation. Jesus summons us to the kind of change that comes from surrender of earthly self and commitment to God. That transformation will look different for each of us, probably not as intense as Arlene's, but easier for some than others. But the life we surrender will be ultimately renewed, and that is a form of salvation. In my spiritual life, I try to surrender to God the only ways I know how, through prayer and service. I ask Jesus to help me become the person he needs me to be in order to manifest his will in this world. Now, it's taken years, but I think it's slowly working. I'm less selfish with my time than I used to be, and less resentful about helping others with their needs. So I'm grateful for this transformation, however slowly it is unfolding. So just do your best. None of us can really give up all our possessions. Few of us can leave all we love and take up our cross. My prayer for you is that you let your spirit lead you every once in a while to a place that's uncomfortable but necessary. That you let your heart be stirred to more compassion, and that you allow the challenging invitation of Jesus to love life a little less and love God a little more to slowly shift your thoughts until one day you wake up transformed.